Live wire, and I'm Siddharth Talia. Now, there was a very significant judgment delivered by the NIA court in Uttar Pradesh a few days ago where it sentenced Murtaza, a man who was responsible for the Gorakhnath temple attack in April last year, to death. Now, in some of its findings, it has managed to establish a clear ISIS pattern or a link to the attack that had taken place on the Gorakhnath temple in April 2022. The court in its judgment cited the probe officer who had claimed before the court that this was an ISIS-inspired lone wolf attack to target a very prominent Hindu temple in order to send a message across the nation. Remember that Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, Mr. Yogi Adityanath, is the Mahant of the Gorakhnath temple. So this was one of the observations that was actually made on the part of the court at the time that the sentencing took place. It further cited the probe officer in this particular case, claiming that the attacker had targeted Gorakhnath temple because of its international stature, and that the temple is also known because Mr. Yogi Adityanath happens to be its head priest. The court also agreed that the attack on the Gorakhnath temple was not an isolated incident, but a categorical act of terrorism and ISIS-inspired lone wolf attack. So these were some of the findings that have been made by the NIA court in that very important case in which one person was apprehended in an April night last year, and subsequently, as the investigations progressed, it was quite evident that this was in fact a terror attack. Let me in fact go across to Shivya, who is going to give us a bit more detail as to what exactly the NIA court said in its findings, and citing also the probe officer at the time that it sentenced the main accused, Murtaza, to death.
Well, as far as the matter is concerned, Times Now was the first channel to access the court's order copy, and now further findings have come to the fore, wherein the court order copy has cited the probe officer, and a big revelation has been made as to why this particular location was chosen for this plot, wherein it says that जिनके मुख्यमंत्री बनने से सिक्योर था तथा इनकेपेटेड वर्चुअल प्राइवेट नेटवर्क है, अभियुक्त के मोबाइल फोन से भी अलग-अलग प्रकार की ऑडियो फाइल्स प्राप्त हुई, जिनके आधार पर अभियुक्त ने बयान दिया कि वो जिहाद के राह में अपने आप को फना करना चाहते थे, तथा इसी कारण उसने गोरखनाथ मंदिर गोरखपुर पर हमला किया, क्योंकि गोरखनाथ मंदिर की पहचान अंतर्राष्ट्रीय स्तर पर है एवं उत्तर प्रदेश के मुख्यमंत्री योगी श्री आदित्यनाथ यहाँ के महंत भी हैं, जिनके मुख्यमंत्री बनने से पूरे देश के लोग इसको जानने लगे हैं। यहाँ पर अटैक करने से पूरे देश में संदेश जाता तथा पुलिस पर उसने इसलिए हमला किया क्योंकि संप्रभु पर हमला करना चाहता था एवं पुलिस संप्रभुता की रक्षा करती है। अभियुक्त अहमद मुर्तजा अब्बासी ने यह भी बताया कि वो सीरिया कानून को मानते हैं एवं देश के संविधान और लोकतंत्र को नहीं मानता है, तथा हाल ही में उसने ISIS द्वारा जारी किया एक वीडियो देखा था कि छोटे हथियारों से हमला कैसे किया जाता है। So this part of the order copy, as cited, clearly reveals as to why this particular location was chosen by him and as to what the larger conspiracy behind it was.
And Shivya, what's also very interesting is that at the time that this attack actually took place, in the immediate aftermath, there were lots of claims coming in that this man might have been mentally deranged, and from what you read out, it does not appear as that the court, the NIA court that eventually sentenced him, has given any credence to those kind of theories that were being floated around in order to put a cloak of innocence on Murtaza, claiming that he was mentally unstable.
Yes, rightly said, because as far as all those claims that were previously made, as you rightly mentioned, they have been silenced, and as per the court's order copy, there seems like there was larger conspiracy and the whole idea, because earlier also we showed our viewers how there was an ISIS link to this entire case, because we learned according to this order copy that how this person, the accused person, was actually influenced by the ISIS, and in fact it also says that before going ahead with the attack, he also saw the videos which were released by the ISIS. So clearly there is a larger conspiracy which is of course further going to unravel in the time to come.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for taking us through those details, Shivya. Clearly a premeditated attack as per the court's findings and that of the NIA as well. Now Times Now has accessed this extremely damning court order which reveals how there's a definite danger to India's national security, which is why Murtaza has now been awarded the death sentence on the part of an NIA court in a span of 9 months. months once it began its hearing. The court, in categorical terms, said that Murtaza Abbasi was in touch with international terror outfits and conspired with them to wage jihad against India and also its secular credentials. Now, justifying capital punishment, which is the most lethal sentence that can actually be handed out, the court said that death for Murtaza is a must to set a precedent and ensure that there is in fact deterrence as a consequence of these actions. So the court, of course, rationalizing the reasons as to why Murtaza had to be handed the death sentence in this particular matter, claiming that this was a premeditated attack. Also, in fact, pointing out that the man in question, Murtaza Abbasi, did not subscribe to Indian laws, did not abide by the provisions of the Indian Constitution, and instead looked to countries like Syria and also, of course, the Sharia in order to carry out his designs. The court also, in fact, ended up saying that the larger nexus pertaining to links with the ISIS needs to also be looked into, and that this was clearly, in categorical terms, a jihadi-inspired attack, putting to rest any possible speculation that this may have been an outcome of mental instability on the part of Murtaza Abbasi. Also, in fact, pointing out that the Gorakhnath temple has acquired international prominence and that it was the intention on the part of the accused in this particular matter to raise international awareness by creating an attack of this nature. Also because Yogi Adityanath, the Chief Minister of Uttar Pradesh, happens to be the head priest or the Mahant of the Gorakhnath temple as well. So detailed findings that have been put out on the part of the NIA court in this particular matter, relying heavily on the submissions made by the National Investigation Agency. Remember that this attack took place in April last year, and the judge in this particular matter held hearings for 60 consecutive days. So there were a comprehensive set of hearings and submissions put forth by the NIA, after which the court, in its wisdom, came to the conclusion that Murtaza Abbasi had to be sentenced to death. Now, there have been, of course, even at the time that this attack took place and in its immediate aftermath, there were political parties as well as family members who came forward to say that Murtaza Abbasi carried out what he did because he was mentally ill, that there were no jihadist designs that can be ascribed to his actions. The Samajwadi Party now has continued to peddle that theory. Let's listen in.
देखिए, जब बहुत दुखद घटना थी जो वहाँ पे मंदिर के परिसर में घटी, हम लोगों ने भी कहा था कि जो हमारी इबादत गाहें हैं, मंदिर हैं, इसकी सुरक्षा और बढ़ाई जाए। लेकिन ये जो नौजवान जिसकी आप बात कर रहे हैं, इसके पिता का इंटरव्यू आया, इसकी फॉर्मर वाइफ की जो कंप्लेंट्स थी वो सब सामने आई। ये मानसिक विक्षिप्त व्यक्ति है, इसका मेडिकल रिपोर्ट सामने आया था। कोई आतंकवादी घटना करने आएगा और वो तलवार या चांपड़ लेकर आएगा और उस डिफरेंटली एबल मानसिक विक्षिप्त व्यक्ति को फांसी की सजा आपने सुना दी।
So very interesting comment coming from Mr. Jamai of the Samajwadi Party, where he's actually questioning the judgment that has been delivered by the NIA court. Remember that the NIA court has gone into the details and the submissions that have been made by the NIA. It's weighed both the mitigating circumstances and the aggravating circumstances and come to the conclusion that Murtaza Abbasi ought to be sentenced to death. Now, of course, Abbasi has the right to approach a high court and in fact appeal against the judgment that's been delivered. But the judgment clearly not being considered sacrosanct on the part of the Samajwadi Party. We just heard Mr. Ahmad Jamai express his point of view. We'll now